Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided.
This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy and other Eagan community television programming is supported by Thomson Reuters, makers of Westlaw Next and based in Eagan. Through Westlaw Next and other innovative online services, Thomson Reuters is the world's leading source of intelligent information for businesses and professionals. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And by U.S. Federal Credit Union, the member-owned financial institution offering service, value, and experience you can trust to the greater Twin Cities community.
Welcome back. Access to Democracy is here, and Alan Miller is here, and Jim McDonald, the chief of the Eagan Police Department, is here, and usually visits us once a year, sort of like a probation visit, but he checks up on us. And Jim, welcome back.
Thank you, Alan. It's always good to be here.
Since 2006, when you first became chief, how has Eagan changed?
Well, I think I've probably changed more than the city has. I was looking at the credits as you open your show, and you have me posted in there, and I look like a lot younger man in that photo. But regarding the city, I'm actually pleased to report that our actual crime rate has been declining for the past 6 years. In fact, I think we're actually on pace for 2014 to have the lowest crime rate ever.
And it was already the lowest in the state for any city over 50,000.
It was low. I don't know if I would go that far, but I would fiercely state that Eagan is a safe community.
According to my research, it was.
Okay, I won't. I don't know where you're getting your information from, Alan, but I'll take it.
Now, you're about to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Eagan Police Department.
Yeah, indeed. In 1965, the department was formed. Then Chief Martin Delorier was the constable for many years and became the city's first police chief. And it was what I would characterize as the building block of the organization. Alan, I got to call attention to a commemorative badge that we're wearing in honor of our.
Well, we're going to focus on it right now. And that's a new badge to commemorate the 50th year of the Eagan Police Department.
Yeah, it's actually have Chief Delorier's original star that he had worn as a constable. It's the first time that anyone has donned this badge, and I think the public will start seeing the badge in the next few weeks or so, probably by the end of December.
And it's very attractive. Large also, but
large. It's not any bigger than the other one, but
it looks larger.
We certainly wanted to draw attention to commemorating our 50th year.
And talking about how things have changed since 2006 to now, and the crime rate is going down, but in terms of equipment, things have changed. In terms of personnel, I don't know if we have more personnel now than we did then, but let's talk about that.
All right. As I mentioned, the crime rate has been going down, but yes, you're correct. Policing has changed. When I started in 1988 with the Eagan Police Department, we had radios that only had 5 channels. We had revolvers. We had a pen and paper in the car and maps. Today's police officer has state-of-the-art computers. They have lasers to detect speed. They have access to the internet.
I know about the lasers.
Yes. Okay. Maybe we can talk about that later on. But the criminals are all still the same. They're getting a little more sophisticated. You can't investigate a crime without digging into someone's cell phone or involving a computer or some other electronic device.
And some of that is very good for obtaining information.
Exactly. And you asked a little bit about our personnel and if we've increased or decreased. I may have mentioned this before in one of the earlier shows I was on, but in those what I would characterize as low economic times, 2008, 2009, the police department actually retracted its staff. We eliminated 2 sworn police officers and then a host of non-sworn personnel. So, in all, I think we dropped about 6 bodies during that time. Since it's been creeping back, I've been able to add an additional police officer, and one position that I'm glad that we got was what we characterize as a crime analyst. And we have so much data.
Sort of forensics?
Yes. We have a crime analyst / computer forensic specialist that we have to offer some training to, but that will help us investigate some of these crimes that have been perpetrated with cell phones or computers.
And crime has changed. Also, as we become a more modernized society, I'm not sure that's for the better with all the for instance, cell phones and computers and everything else. It's got to make it more difficult, actually, for policing in some respects with people where they just have those cell phones and they can tip each other off and things like that.
Yeah, when I remember working the street as a young police officer, if you caught a burglar, they would have maybe a 2-way radio in their car because they were talking to someone that would help them do the crime. Today, cell phones, there's texting back and forth, they're making direct calls and those sorts of things. But, and two is people are using computers in the basement of their homes or wherever, and they're doing frauds and other sorts of crimes. And to obtain evidence to get someone convicted, you have to actually go in to their home, seize the computer. Once the computer is back at headquarters, if you will, you have to get a search warrant to look into the computer and then extract the data and make sure that it's not compromised so it's can stand up in court. And
now, is it standard to seize a cell phone when you arrest somebody?
Yes, but the thing is you can't look at the cell phone until you get a warrant.
So it requires going to court and having a judge sign a warrant.
Yes.
What about a computer in a home?
Same.
You get a call for domestic abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's go one step further. The woman says, I caught him using a lot of pornographic material, and you're standing there in the living room. Mm-hmm. Can you then take that computer?
You seize the computer, but you can't look at it until you get a search warrant.
And then who would look at it?
We have people that, and this is something that we just started, specifically trained to extract information off of a computer. When you get a computer and you're going to analyze it for evidence, you have to actually take the computer's hard drive and you image it. So you have to put another compatible hard drive next to it, image the information off onto your second hard drive, and then you have personnel that can look through that image drive to look for evidence. The key there is that you don't want to have someone question the integrity of the original hard drive.
Especially if it goes to court and that
Exactly.
becomes primary evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and every police car now has a computer in it.
Yes. Our officers, they have access to state records and department records, and they can communicate car to car with computers, and it
They
does
can
make
pull up your license in an
Yep.
instant.
pictures. Yes, and it certainly makes policing a whole lot easier, but it does open up some challenges as well. One thing that I'm concerned as an administrator is distracted driving. The officers are oftentimes getting dispatched or told to go to a call through a computer and there's information attached to the call where they have to look at it and be able to assess what's going on at the call so they can help make a law enforcement decision.
I think that there should be a law in this state, and I've said it for years, that you cannot use a cell phone and absolutely cannot text. I think you can't text,
You cannot text.
but you shouldn't be able to use a cell phone And an article I read recently says that you're 20% more likely to have an accident if you're talking on a cell phone than if you're just paying attention to where you're going.
Yep. I think the National Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, they've actually come out and said you're more likely to get injured by someone texting than you are by a drunk driver. That's how serious it is.
And drunk driving in and of itself is a big problem also.
Indeed. Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't know why, that seems to be recidivists there. The people who get arrested time and time and time again, and maybe we're putting them out in the street too early or something like that, but those people need help, and we're not giving it to them.
I would agree with that. Is there's a lot of repeat offenders out there, and you know, I mean, as long as there's alcohol in our society, I think I'll have job security. And unfortunately, it's going to be at the expense of someone who's really going to get injured.
Yeah, yeah, it's a shame. Now we have a new outlet mall in Eagan, 100 stores, taking up what used to be the Cedarvale area, and actually there's a couple of apartment houses being built on either side of it and a hotel to come in. That has to have affected your department and changed, in some respects, the way you're policing.
It did. You know, when we learned of the mall coming into the Cedarvale area, a number of the city officials, me included, we went out to Livermore, California. I'd characterize it as a sister city. They operate the same way as the police department does. They have about 90 officers. We're about 70. They police the same way we do in respect to how we assign our officers. They had a mall under their belt, and they were managing about 1,700 calls a year at their facility. That Livermore, California is just outside of San Francisco. So we knew we were going to have some issues. And to ensure that we could maintain emergency response throughout the city, we had to do some shuffling. And one of the things we did is we had a traffic unit that we essentially just took the 2 officers assigned there and assigned them to what I'd characterize as the TIF district, or the property surrounding the mall and some of the nearby restaurants and apartments that you outlined. We did that to help manage the calls. And since the facility opened in August of this year, we've managed about 450 calls. And I would say they're not, the activity there isn't what I would characterize as serious. I mean, we've had some lost people there. We've had some suspicious persons. We've stopped a number of cars.
You've had some shoplifting.
We've
there,
had, and I'll get
because
to that. Yep, I'll get to that. I think in that time we've had about 75 cases of shoplifting with some of the stores. The idea there is people. It's a safe place to go. I think if there's the crime involved there is they're preying on the merchants, which I certainly don't like. But I don't want to give anyone the impression that the facility has been a drain on the resources or has a dangerous connotation to it, because it really doesn't.
Just the way it's set out is really so different. It's outdoors and people are walking, and it's a very ambient type of pleasant facility. But I know from reading some of the crime reports, the Blue Blotter, that you've had some shoplifting by some professionals. One in, I think, last month, people had come from the Mall of America where they had done their initial shoplifting, and then they came here to continue it, and you caught them both in 2 cars.
Yes, we're not getting ones and twos. I mean, these are organized groups. They'll go in and they'll distract the merchant and then walk out with a bag full of stuff. Very seasoned criminals, and you certainly don't want to see that. But in my mind, we expected that there would be some crime, and this really is. It's not an anomaly, and I would like to tell your viewers we are able to manage it, and as we learn more, as we get more time under our belt policing the mall area, I think we'll be able to duck and roll and hopefully get back to having our traffic unit again.
Good. the traffic unit being the motorcycles?
Yeah, Alan, we had 2 officers assigned to do specifically traffic enforcement. In Eagan, you're more likely to get injured or killed in a traffic accident than any other activity in Eagan. What we're missing by reassigning the traffic unit is the people that would call and have legitimate concerns about speeding in their neighborhoods or someone disobeying a stop sign or whatever. We had people assigned specifically to take care of those problems. Now what occurs is we have officers that are assigned to different sectors of the city. If there's a complaint in a certain sector, the officer is assigned to manage that traffic complaint, and they can really only do it when they can, because they might go down there and sit in the neighborhood for a while and work on the problem, but if they get called away to take a report or deal with a heart attack or whatever, then that traffic concern just kind of goes by the wayside.
Now, if I call 911, that call doesn't go to you, though. That call goes into the communications center for the county. And what's the procedure from that?
Well, it should be seamless for you, Alan. You dial 911, the dispatcher answers, and they dispatch for all the cities in the sheriff's department in Dakota County. The dispatcher will assign an Eagan card to manage your issue.
My cat is up a tree.
Well, you call 911 for anything, and as silly as that may sound,
that shouldn't be a 911 call.
Well, but that's what we're told the DCC or the communications center would like calls reported. That's the method. What the advantage of using 911 is your address automatically populates into their system. So if for some reason if the call's cut off before you could convey where you're calling from, the dispatcher would have it.
What about a cell phone that uses 911?
They're working on latitude and longitude and being able to triangulate where your phone is. I mean, that's going to be the next generation. My understanding, that will be the next generation of
If somebody gets a heart attack in a car and manages to punch out 911.
Yep. Depending upon where they are, if they call 911 on the freeway, that call may not necessarily go to the Dakota County Communications Center. It might go to the State Patrol. But I would say this. Since the DCC or the Dakota County Communications Center has been in operation, emergency calls, when you phone 911, the minute we're told to go to your house, and by the time we get there is about 5 minutes. So I think that's a pretty good response time for emergencies.
Now, nationally, we've had a lot of argument about who should get a license. Should people be licensed? Do they have to register? And I know, for the most part, you don't have to register. But what about people with mental disabilities? Are they able to get guns?
Okay, you're talking about guns?
Yeah.
People that have mental health issues, that are documented mental health issues, the law does not allow them to purchase a firearm. Now,
can they just go to a gun show there where they don't ask for really any information and purchase a gun?
Well, before any gun is sold, they need, and if you're a licensed dealer, if you're selling a gun, you're a licensed dealer, the person that is trying to buy a gun needs to have a permit to purchase.
So there is at least a check on that. Mm-hmm. Now, we've talked about marijuana, and since you first came here, the country has really turned on its head in terms of marijuana. There's much more acceptance of it. Mm-hmm. You were never really uptight about marijuana as being one of the great criminal problems in the country. So is this sort of a vindication of the fact that your beliefs are coming home now?
Well, I guess, Alan, my belief about marijuana is, first of all, my philosophy on a lot of things, it was guns or marijuana. I'm not a sky is falling type person. I think things need to occur, and then you have to evaluate. Anyone can speculate. And you know, when we went with the permit to purchase or permit to carry, you listen to some people, and the sky was going to fall, and the sky has not fallen. Now, with marijuana, I think you have to take a look and see what's going to happen. If it was, you really can't say what'll occur until you have some experience under your belt.
You still have to enforce the law.
You have to enforce the law, but as far as coming out and going be pro or con against marijuana, I think you have to look at other states that have implemented this. I think Colorado, Washington, and now to some extent DC, I think they are going to be in a fishbowl. And I really believe that that'll be wise for legislators and politicians to watch and see what the impacts are on those states and on
In
the society.
terms of revenue, Colorado is going wild with the revenue that they're making because people are coming from all over the country. Well, it's like casinos, you know. If you only have one in one location in 6 states, it's going to be very busy. But it still has been a big revenue boost to the state of Colorado.
You can't, if you wanted to, if you're going to use solely getting revenue to pass a marijuana bill, I think pass it. If you strictly want to base your decision on revenue, because yeah, they're making a lot of money, but you know they're having people having access to another substance that causes traffic accidents, that can potentially cause crime, and who knows about if it's a gateway drug or not. You know, that's all up for debate. But there is that side too. That it's not all rosy. I mean, there are going to be some issues.
Do you collect DNA samples at the time of an arrest?
We do not. You in Minnesota, you can collect DNA at the time that they're charged. So if someone was charged with a crime.
Because that has solved so many old crimes.
Yes.
The ability to do that obviously it's proved itself time and again.
Yes. We've actually collected samples from rapes and burglaries, and you get a DNA sample, and you might put it into a system, and the person has never been identified. There's no record of the person on file. But what you do is you can put that sample into the system as a John Doe or a Jane Doe, and if the person is ever arrested, then you can link them to your crime.
And it solves a lot of old crimes.
Yes.
Or it has proved itself. Now, civic-wise, Eagan Police has a Citizens Academy and an Advanced Citizens Academy. My wife being one of your graduates of both of them. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you know, I think we also have a senior academy too that we've instituted a year or two ago. All have been very popular. You know, I would be the first to say, Alan, is the police department needs to do some sort of outreach. I'd really like to see our citizens do some of the, or witness some of the good things that we do. You know, if you flip on the news at night, you might see someone who might have been, you know, assaulted by a police officer, or they got in a car chase, and the question that a viewer would have is that, well, geez, why do the police do that? What we do in our academies is we show people police tactics. We try to explain, you know, why we do what we do, with the ideas that people get a better understanding of the police.
Including canine demonstrations.
Yeah,
and
you know,
we didn't mention, but we have a canine unit also.
We do, yes.
And I have a little canine unit at home.
Yeah.
Very good. Saw 2 deer in the backyard this morning, and she went crazy. It's only in Eagan.
Only in Eagan.
Yes. Domestic violence. Probably one of the biggest challenges in policing. And you read all the time about how officers really are reluctant or really more on edge in answering a domestic violence case necessarily than a lot of other things. What do you do to protect yourself?
Well, domestics, through police training, and it's been well documented, that are one of the most serious calls a police officer can go on. You know, when you start intervening in person's personal life and you get into the family dynamics, and you're just walking into a situation where just people are just flat out mad, and you know, you throw in alcohol being involved, or drugs, or maybe some mental health issues, and it gets to be kind of dicey sometimes. And as far as your question about what do you do to keep yourself safe is, you know, we try to send 2 officers to those.
That was going to be my next question.
We try to send 2 officers to those sorts of calls, and the idea is you're always trying to be aware. You're looking for cues that would try to, it would help you recognize if you're about to be assaulted.
To stop it before it has a chance to start.
Yeah, you try to do a preemptive strike, if you will.
And what about identity theft, senior citizens in particular? How big a problem has that been?
Well, some of that, it's a problem, and the thing is it's really hard to uncover. In many instances, a person, if victimized in Eagan, the crook is in Nigeria or some other part of the country. Well, it's not like we can get on a plane and fly to Nigeria, and we have to rely on, you know, other law enforcement agencies to help us, and frankly, we don't get that much assistance in it. And I think the best way to keep someone safe is to be very wary. I don't like to verify any information over the phone or on the computer. If someone wants to verify information, they should have it in the first place. And
we
oftentimes
just
they
had
don't.
Bill Raker of U.S. Federal Credit Union in here, and he said pretty much the same thing. Don't give information out over the phone.
Right.
And be very careful. Check your accounts all the time.
You know, in Minnesota, we're so nice, and we want to help people, and we want to believe people, but I think really the best course of action is just to kind of sit back and take a deep breath and not give that information that we just talked about.
Now the other night, and we only have a minute and a half left, but the other night, and coming home, I saw a car with its doors open and 6 police cars there, and some people were surrounded, and it ended up being, I don't know, a 911 call about a shooting that wasn't a shooting, but marijuana was seized, or some drug, I guess meth was seized. Mm-hmm. Do you get to confiscate that car?
Depending upon who owned the car and how it was used. Generally, most of the time we don't. And it's because of the circumstances that I just outlined. The legislature has made it very difficult to start seizing people's property now. And there's a lot of issues that go into before you can actually take possession of a car, and it's pretty complicated. Because
if you watch television, you would think it's much more prevalent than I think it actually is. Who gets the money when that car is sold?
We are, if it's a drug case, we are associated with the Dakota County Drug Task Force. Any drug forfeiture, regardless if the property is taken in Eagan or Inver Grove Heights or Hastings or South St. Paul, the proceeds go to support the Dakota County Drug Task Force. The city of Eagan does not get a dime.
The city of Eagan sleeps securely at night, thanks to people like you and your officers, who are, for the most part, very pleasant individuals, and it's not aggressive policing, it's intelligent policing. And I attribute that to you and how you set up the department. And Chief Jim McDonald, to the next 50 years, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. It's a pleasure being here.
Mr. Miller, that's when you know you're old.